Hello all, welcome back to Stories from History, where we go over interesting stories from history, whether that's about certain people, places or events, fictional or non-fiction. If it's an interesting story from history, we're willing to tell it. And today I thought I'd do an interesting story about a relevant topic nowadays with Christopher Nolan's new movie coming up, The Odyssey. I thought we'd cover the man behind the myth, Odysseus. One of the great heroes from Homer's epic cycles, and for good reason too. He is epic in many ways, has many skills, and goes on many crazy adventures. So yeah, without further ado, let's tell the story of Odysseus. Because when we think of Greek heroes, we often imagine strength, like Achilles charging across the battlefield, Hercules crushing monsters, or Ajax standing like a human wall. But one of the most famous heroes in Greek mythology was not remembered mainly for strength, but mostly his mind. And this was Odysseus. The Romans called him Ulysses. He was the king of Ithaca, which was a small, rugged island off the western coast of Greece. He was husband to Penelope, a father to Telemachus, and one of the most important Greek leaders in the Trojan War. But Odysseus was different from other heroes. Achilles was the hero of rage. Hector was the hero of duty. Odysseus was the hero of intelligence, survival, and transformation. Homer called him a man of many ways, and that phrase is important because Odysseus is never just one thing. He is a warrior, a liar, a husband, a king, a pirate, a survivor, a strategist, a storyteller, and sometimes a trickster. And the story begins before the Trojan War, when Greek kings were called to fight after Paris of Troy took Helen from Sparta. Odysseus did not want to go, because recently he'd become a dad. He loved his wife Penelope, and he knew that the war could be the end of his life. According to later mythology, when Greek messengers came to recruit him, Odysseus pretended to be insane. He attached an ox and a donkey to the same plough and began sowing salt into the field, which is, a crazy thing to do back in those days. But the trick failed. A Greek named Palamedes placed Odysseus' infant son, Telemachus, in front of the plough. Odysseus immediately stopped, proving he was sane. So he was forced to leave Ithaca. And for the next 20 years, he would be separated from home, because he would be in Troy for 10 years and then 10 years trying to get back. But during this Trojan War, Odysseus became one of the Greeks' most valuable leaders. He wasn't the strongest fighter, but he was one of the smartest. In the Iliad, when the Greek armies panic and rush towards the ships, it is Odysseus that restores order. When the Greeks need someone to speak to Achilles after his rage threatens the entire campaign, Odysseus is chosen. And when they need a dangerous night mission behind enemy lines, it is Odysseus who goes with Diomedes. He fights, he negotiates, he spies, he plans. And he proves that war is not won by strength alone. It is won by timing, persuasion, deception, and strategy. And after 10 long years, when the Greeks still cannot break the walls of Troy, Odysseus becomes associated with the most famous trick in ancient warfare, the Trojan Horse. The Greeks build a giant wooden horse and leave it outside the walls of Troy, then pretending to sail away. The Trojans believe the horse is a sacred offering and bring it into the city, but hidden inside are the finest Greek warriors. And that night, while Troy sleeps, the warriors climb out, open the gates, and the Greek army returns. And Troy falls in a devastating massacre. The Trojan Horse shows the genius of Odysseus, but also the danger of his genius, because his mind can solve what force cannot. But it's the same mind that also brings about destruction. That is what makes him so fascinating, because he is not a perfectly clean-cut hero. He is brilliant, but he is morally complicated. So after Troy falls, we see Odysseus begin his journey home. This is where the Odyssey tape begins. But this journey home isn't simple, because Odysseus is not just traveling across the sea. He is traveling through temptation, pride, trauma, memory, fear, and identity. In a psychological sense, the Odyssey is about what happens to a person after war. Odysseus survives Troy, but he does not immediately return to normal life. Like many soldiers across history, he has to find his way back not only to his house but to himself. And his first major disaster comes when Odysseus and his men encounter the Cyclops Polyphemus. The Cyclops is a giant with one eye, living outside the rules of civilization. He doesn't respect guests, gods, or human law. When Odysseus and his men enter his cave, Polyphemus traps them and begins eating them. Odysseus again survives, not by overpowering, by outthinking. He tells Polyphemus, the Cyclops, that his name is nobody. He then gets the Cyclops drunk, blinds him with a sharpened stake, and escapes by hiding his men beneath the bellies of sheep. When Polyphemus screams to his neighbors for help, that nobody is hurting him, the other Cyclops think nothing is wrong. It is one of the cleverest scenes in all of mythology. But then Odysseus makes his mistake. As he sails away, he cannot resist boasting and reveals his name. Polyphemus calls upon his father Poseidon, god of the sea, to curse Odysseus. And from that moment, the journey home becomes 10 times harder, literally. The Cyclops episode reveals one of Odysseus' greatest flaws, his pride. His intelligence saves him, his ego punishes him. Symbolically, the Cyclops represents brute instinct, hunger, violence, and the uncivilized force of the body. Odysseus defeats that force through cunning, but he is still not master of himself because he cannot defeat his own need for recognition. He wants the world to know he is clever, and it is that desire that costs him years. Next, Odysseus encounters many strange forces, each testing a different part of human nature. There is Circe, the enchantress who turns his men into pigs. Her island is a place of pleasure, of magic, and of transformation. Odysseus resists her spell with divine help, but then himself becomes her lover and stays with her for a year. Psychologically, Circe represents the seductive power of comfort. After war and terror, Odysseus is tempted to stop moving, to forget home, to live in pleasure. But eventually, he remembers his purpose. He must return to Ithaca. Then Odysseus descends to the underworld. This is one of the darkest and most important parts of the story, because there he speaks with the dead and fallen heroes, old companions, and a prophet. He sees that glory does not protect anybody from death. He even meets Achilles, the greatest warrior of the Trojan War, who says that he would rather be a poor servant among the living than a king over all the dead. And this moment completely changes the heroic world, because in the Iliad, glory seems like the highest goal. But in the Odyssey, life itself becomes more precious than fame. Odysseus learns that survival, home, and human connection matter more than heroic reputation. And then we see the Sirens, a group of mysterious beings whose songs are so beautiful that sailors lose their minds and crash their ships. They promise knowledge. They sing of everything that happened at Troy. They offer the pleasure of knowing, remembering, and being praised. Odysseus wants to hear them, but he also wants to survive. So he orders his men to plug their ears with wax and tie him to the mast of the ship. No matter how much he begs, they must not release him. And this scene is one of the most psychologically powerful in mythology. Odysseus knows he can be tempted. So instead of pretending to be stronger than temptation, he builds a system to protect himself from it. And that is true wisdom. The Sirens can represent obsession, addiction, nostalgia, or dangerous knowledge. Their song is beautiful, but it leads to death. Odysseus survives because he understands his own weakness, and that might be his greatest strength. Then Odysseus must sail between Scylla and Charybdis. On one side, Scylla is a monster who will snatch men from ships. On the other hand is Charybdis, a whirlpool that can destroy the entire ship. There is no perfect choice. Odysseus must choose the lesser disaster, which involves losing his men to Scylla, but saving his ships. And this moment represents one of the harshest truths in leadership, that sometimes there is no clean victory. Sometimes wisdom means choosing the option that causes the least destruction. Not every problem can be solved. Some can only be survived. Eventually, after many years of suffering, Odysseus loses all of his men and ends up alone. He washes up on the island of Calypso, a divine nymph who offers him comfort, beauty, and even immortality. But there is a catch. He must stay with her forever and forget his home. And this temptation is different, because Calypso offers escape from pain, escape from age and responsibility. But Odysseus refuses. He chooses his mortality. He chooses his aging wife over an immortal goddess. He chooses home over paradise. And this is one of the deepest meanings of the Odyssey. To be human is not to escape suffering forever. It is to accept time, love, duty, loss, and return. Odysseus does not become great by avoiding human life. He becomes great by choosing it. Meanwhile, back in his home, his wife waits. For 20 years, she does not know whether Odysseus is alive or dead. Her palace is overrun by suitors, arrogant men who want to marry her, take Odysseus' throne, and take his wealth. But she too is very intelligent and delays them with her own tricks. She says she will choose a husband after she finishes weaving a burial shroud for Odysseus' father. Day by day she weaves, and by night she secretly unweaves. Just as Odysseus survives through cunning, Penelope survives also through cunning. She is not passive. She is his match. Odysseus and Penelope represent two sides of the same intelligence. His is outwards, adventurous, and cunning, and hers is inwards, patient, and enduring. Eventually, Odysseus returns to Ithaca disguised as a beggar, and this disguise matters. The great king does not come home in glory. He comes home hidden, humbled, and tested. He must see who remained loyal. He must control his anger. He must wait for the right moment. Then comes the famous contest of the bow. Penelope announces that she will marry the man who can string Odysseus' great bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads. They all try and fail. Then the beggar asks to try. The suitors laugh, but he takes the bow, strings it with ease, and fires the arrow perfectly. His disguise falls away, and they can see he has returned. With the help of his son and loyal servants, he kills the suitors and reclaims his house. Now, this ending can feel brutal to modern audiences, but in the logic of the ancient story, it restores order. The suitors have violated hospitality, abused his household, and tried to steal his family and kingdom. Odysseus returns not only as a husband, but as justice. But the true emotional climax comes afterwards. Penelope does not immediately accept him, she tests him. She orders their marriage bed to be moved. Odysseus reacts strongly because he knows the bed cannot be moved. He built it himself around a living olive tree. That secret proves his identity. The bed represents their marriage, their home, and something deeply rooted. After 20 years wandering, temptation, disguise, and suffering, Odysseus finally returns to what cannot be moved. His center, his home, his true self. That is why the Odyssey has lasted for thousands of years, because it is not just a story about monsters and magic. It is a story about the human mind under pressure. The Cyclops tests Odysseus' cunning and pride. Circe tests his desire for pleasure. The underworld tests his understanding of death. The Sirens test his relationship with temptation and knowledge. Scylla and Charybdis test his leadership under impossible choices. Calypso tests whether he will abandon mortal life for comfort and mortality. The suitors test his patience, discipline, and identity. And Penelope tests the truth of who he is. And that is the story of Odysseus, the man of many ways, the hero who won through intelligence, and the wanderer who crossed the world only to discover that the greatest victory was returning to himself. So, if you like that video, please leave us a comment, subscribe, and do all those algorithm boosting things. We're trying to grow. If you have any suggestions for new videos, please leave them in the comments. That was Stories from History. Thank you very much for your time. Keep studying, keep living history. Signing out.